In the previous lecture, we already had some branches, which we can list by executing git branch. And we mentioned that these branches are, in a good CI scenario, the least amount of branches that you should have: the dev branch, the test branch, and the master branch. We have also already executed some commits and some merges. So currently, all of our branches are pointing to the exact same commit, or they are all at the same page. They have the exact same amount of changes. But we did start by committing to dev, then to test, and in test we made another commit, and then to master. Finally, updating dev so it has all of those new changes that were made only inside of test. During this lecture, what we're going to do is create a new remote repository that eventually is going to hold all of these changes. That remote repository is going to be hosted on GitHub, and it is going to be a crucial part of this puzzle. For one, it is going to be through the remote repository that we will be able to access all of these commits from pretty much any computer where we download that repository. But, and most aligned with the objective of this course, it is going to be that remote repository on GitHub that triggers the entire CI/CD process. So I am going to navigate over to github.com. And in here, either sign in with your existing GitHub account or create a new one. But the thing that we're going to be doing in here is create that brand new repository. And I'm going to do it directly from here. In the left, I have the new repository button. And in here, all I have to do is set a name. In my case, it is just going to be Sam example. Let's see if this is available. And if it is, I can optionally add a description and set this repository either public or private. Because this is just a quick test and I don't really have anything interesting to share in this repository, I can make it private. And make sure that I do not initialize this repository with a README. You can ignore these three options that I have down here. If you don't see them listed, it's okay. We are going to take a look at the App Center one later on in this course. For now, let's just click on Create Repository. And that's it. This is all it takes to create the repository. Now, so far, of course, it has no code. We still have to push everything that we have locally to this remote. But by default, we already have this URI that is going to help us eventually set this repository as the remote of our local repository. That is something that we will do in the next lecture. For now, just notice that you have the entire list of commits that you should execute if you want to create a new repository on the command line, or if you want to push an existing repository, which is exactly what we're going to do. But let's just not get ahead of ourselves and explore a little bit more about what we have in here. Inside of GitHub, you're going to have issues, and issues can form an important part of the development process when you're using GitHub. Most of the times here in the issues, you're going to find or add yourself those bugs or new features that you find that you have to work with. And once you have those issues, you probably work on them from your IDE, commit them, and when you want to execute a merge, instead of executing a merge from the terminal, most of the times you're going to be executing them through pull requests. Here, this tab right here, the pull requests tab, is probably the most important one, maybe after the code tab here on GitHub, and the one that is actually going to be triggering the entire CI/CD process. Because in here is where you want to merge maybe a new feature from one branch to another. And that merging, that pull request, when correctly configured to App Center or any other service that implements DevOps, is going to, of course, automatically set up the entire DevOps process. You also find things like projects to organize the issues or the features that you have to work on, the wiki, security, insights. These three and even the projects tab are mainly going to be ignored by us throughout this course, But we are going to be navigating over to the settings tab because in here, we will have to set some permissions to our branches. Of course, currently we have no branches, so we don't see that option, but we have to secure our branches. And by this, I mean that not everyone and not all the time should we be able to merge into the master branch, because that is a branch that should only contain code that already works. So we should have some security in place that we can set from the settings tab. But do not worry about it, we're going to take a closer look at that when the time comes. I am getting ahead of myself a little bit in here. For now, we already have this repository ready here on GitHub. In the next lecture, we're going to add this cloud repository as a remote of our local repository and push all of those changes to this one. So we can see the code, we can see the history of changes, and we can see the branches directly from GitHub.